If you want to run a hotel, there's one document you absolutely need to know inside and out: the profit and loss statement. In this explainer, we're going to break it all down because understanding this report isn't just about numbers. It's the key to your success as a leader. Hello and a very warm welcome. I am your Hotel AI expert, and I'm here to guide you on your professional journey with Europe Hotel School. Our goal is simple: to give you the practical, real-world knowledge you'll actually use to excel in hotel operations. So, let's get started. So, here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the big picture, why the P&L is basically a general manager's best friend. Then, we'll follow the money, decoding revenue and costs. After that, we'll calculate a super important metric called operating profit, see how that gets us to the bottom line, and finally, learn how to turn all those numbers into powerful, strategic insights. Ready? All right, let's dive right in. First things first, what is the P&L, really? Now, don't think of it as just some boring financial summary. You've got to see it as the ultimate report card for your hotel's performance. And this is exactly what makes the P&L such a dynamic tool. See, it's not really about looking backward. It's all about looking forward. The best leaders use it to track performance, pinpoint exactly where the business is winning or losing, and then make those smart, data-driven decisions that separate the best from the rest. Okay, now let's follow the money. This part is all about breaking down the two fundamental pieces of any P&L. The money coming in, that's your revenue, and the money going out, your costs. Understanding this flow is truly the first step to mastering financial control. Revenue is where the whole story starts. And for most hotels, that story's all about the rooms. Room revenue is almost always the biggest piece of the pie, often making up around 65%. Food and beverage is a very strong number too, and then everything else, like your spa, parking, or events, fills in the rest. Now for the other side of the coin, expenses. Just think of them in two main buckets. First, you've got your cost of goods sold, or COGS as you'll hear it called. These are costs tied directly to something you sell, like the food for your restaurant. Then you have your operating expenses. That's basically everything else it takes to keep the lights on and the doors open, from your team's salaries to your marketing budget. So, now that we have a handle on revenue and expenses, we can calculate our first major indicator of profitability. This is where we get to see how efficiently the core business of the hotel is actually performing. And that key indicator is the gross operating profit, or GOP. Now, what's really important here is the focus on core operations. GOP tells you how much profit the hotel is making just from its primary business, selling rooms and serving guests, before you start considering other financial stuff like interest or taxes. And you know what? The calculation itself is beautifully simple. It's just 3 steps. You start with your total revenue, you take out your direct costs, the COGS, and then you subtract your day-to-day operating expenses. And whatever is left, that's your gross operating profit. It really is the purest measure of your hotel's operational health. Now, achieving a healthy GOP is a huge win, but it's not the end of the story. To get to the real bottom line, we have to account for a few more things that fall a little outside of the hotel's day-to-day business. And these are your non-operating items. Just like the name says, they aren't related to the core business of checking in guests or serving food. We're talking about things like interest paid on loans, or maybe income you got from an investment. They're definitely important for the overall financial picture, which is why we keep them separate from our operational profit. So, to find our final profit, we start with that GOP we just calculated. From there, we adjust for any of those non-operating items. And then, the very last step is to subtract the income tax expense. This whole process takes us to our final destination, net income. So here's the crucial point. Net income is the ultimate measure of profitability. It's the amount of money the hotel has truly earned after every single revenue stream and every single expense has been accounted for. This is the figure that really tells the story of the hotel's financial success. Look, understanding the P&L structure is half the battle. But now for the really cool part. We're going to focus on how to transform these numbers into powerful strategic insights by calculating some key performance metrics. This is how data becomes action. Which brings us to a really critical question. We've got all this data, GOP, net income, revenues, expenses, but how do we actually use it to measure the hotel's performance effectively? How do we know if we're actually doing a good job? Well, the answer is to think in percentages, not just raw dollars. And that's where profit margins come in. The GOP margin tells you how efficient your operations are. This is the number a GM lives and breathes every single day. The net profit margin, on the other hand, shows the ultimate profitability for the owners and investors. Both are absolutely crucial for benchmarking your performance against last month, last year, or even your competitors.
And always remember, the P&L is just one piece of the puzzle. To get the full picture, you have to look at it alongside other key metrics. Things like your average daily rate, or ADR, and of course RevPAR, which shows your revenue per available room. When you put all these tools together, you get a complete diagnostic of your hotel's financial health.
So I'll leave you with a question to think about. As a future leader, looking at a P&L like this, what's the first thing you would investigate to improve profitability? Would you focus on a specific revenue stream or maybe a particular cost? Answering that question, well, that's what turns a manager into a true leader.